Okay, now we're going to go to question 2, and it deals with the exact same document. And like anybody who has a home budget or whatever, you will have a wish list or whatever. So this is the same wish list, but not everything can be completed and addressed in 2018. So I'll go ahead with the question. Give us your list of the lower priority projects from the same 12 targets of action that can be moved to 2019 or later. Why should these projects be delayed, reduced, or canceled? Mary?
Okay, thank you. So the first one I selected after I did some research was the PCH Aviation, and I want to be very clear because I'm a huge fan of this project. I've talked about it for years, in fact. I think it's incredibly important. But when I learned it was stalled out a little bit and that Caltrans may have lost a little bit of energy toward it, I knew it wasn't something for next year, especially given all of the things that we just talked about are absolutely imminent and important to get to first. Now, the following year, I would be a huge fan of getting right back to the table of negotiation with Caltrans and trying to renew and re-energize that process. Second, the downtown revitalization, I'm another big fan of that, but what I have learned is that that particular plan is kind of a visionary plan with a lot of details that we are not prepared just quite yet to tackle in reality and in conversation. There is currently a subcommittee in the city, including members of council and HBPD, et cetera, that are working on basic short-term solutions to the challenges we have in the downtown. This is like environmental design, better lighting, maybe a substation, and other enhancements, but creating that partnership so we can mitigate something. I think that's far more important right now. And lastly, I had said the boards and commissions review was something that could wait beyond next year. I asked around, and the prevailing thought is that they're doing a very good job. Sure, they should be reviewed, and we may need to add one or so down the line. But for right now, next year, I could bump it for another year. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Haney?
Thank you, Al. So the first issue, and again, it's not because of lack of need, but because of the changes, is the PCH Aviation mobility improvements, and because of the passage of Measure M, which was just passed, and it's still in process, the funding process for Measure M. Caltrans has changed its positions. I know our city manager has went and met with them, and he's keeping us updated on what's going on. But the plan that we had a year and a half ago has now changed from Caltrans' perspective. And because of the new passage of Measure M, there may be additional funding opportunities. So I wouldn't mind delaying that process and seeing where our best way we can get funding for it would be. Regarding the boards and commissions review, I think that can wait as well because, again, the commissions that we currently have, I think, are doing a good job, and they can maybe improve in terms of various things that they want to do a little bit more of, but I think they're working well with the council. And also, in our meeting last night, at the city council meeting, there was a proposal to potentially form 2 other commissions for ADA accessibility and for the arts, and our staff wasn't comfortable that we have enough the resources staff-wise to be able to put together 2 additional commissions. So I suggested that maybe in the next year's budget we would look at that and see where the resources would be. So to do that immediately without having funding and budget appropriation probably would not be helpful. Thank you. And then the last thing I have is the encroachments. As much as I hate the encroachments process, and I think the city property should remain city property, we are currently in the middle of doing the upgrades for 8th Street, which will get involved in encroachment issues, and it's probably going to go through the duration of 2018, and I think we should use this as a learning lesson rather than do additional encroachment work next year, use that as a learning lesson, and defer the encroachment process until 2019.
Okay, thanks, Haney. Trent?
I am focused on spending our tax dollars again on visible and usable improvements. So anything that doesn't get us something that we can see and touch and use, I would be in favor of delaying. And top of my list on this regard is our carbon neutrality plan. The state of California leads the world in carbon neutrality, and we're now just piggybacking on with what the state is doing. And I think that's a good thing, because I think let them decide how to get there, and we're going to follow along. Focusing our efforts here with the little city on carbon neutrality doesn't get us anything, and our tax dollars tend to be frittered away. I would also say that the commissions and reviews we could put aside, and I would be in agreement with Hanny on the encroachments, that is something that we could push push down the road a little bit. But I'm really focused on taking our money and spending it on things that benefit the city of Hermosa and the residents and the guests. And it's not really complicated. It's things that we've neglected for a long time. And we pay a lot of tax dollars to live here, and we should put that money back into our community. Things like the green belt and the sprinkler repairs. The sprinklers don't work right, and that's just unacceptable.
Trent, you can summarize.
That's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thanks, Trent. Pete?
Thank you. One that comes to mind is carbon neutrality. As in all our city services we do, sometimes we need to stop and assess the costs and possibility to implement fees to recover our costs, as we do with other services. Code enforcement, we need to review the policies and make them proactive rather than reactive with our residents and businesses. The boards and commission review, I think we have a great group of commissioners. Some have been on for many years, but the council should meet with them at least once a year to hear their concerns and which way the council would like to have them head the city. Meet and confer on MOUs. Without our employees, the goals that the city sets will never be accomplished. I've always said that the employees are part of the family of the city, and we need to make sure that they have the best tools and pay them as best we can to make sure we can retain these employees, because we have a hard time retaining the good employees. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. And Stacy?
Thank you. Well, first, we can adjust our carbon neutral goal. We heard from our community and about what they had to say about carbon neutrality, a concept that was originally adopted before I was on this city council, and we removed it entirely from our general plan. Instead, we have an adjusted goal to achieve carbon reduction for our municipality and aligned our community carbon reduction goals with the state reduction requirements. We will really need to hone in on what city facilities need our attention, because we can't afford to address them all. It'll be good to hear from the community next week at our study session on this topic. My hunch is that we should prioritize remodeling our police department next. We can also remove the priority of negotiating our MOUs, since we successfully negotiated 3-year contracts with all of our unions that are now set to expire in 2019. And a big priority that's missing from this list that I would love to have just crossed off is the looming threat over our city for decades of oil litigation. The threat of another lawsuit or oil drilling in our town is officially dead, and I am very proud to have been a part of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. Okay, Matt?
Thank you, Al. There are 2 particular items here that stuck out for me as far as delay, reduce, or cancel. Probably to nobody's surprise who knows that I've been very outspoken about this issue for almost 2 years now, is the carbon neutrality. There's never been a comprehensive carbon neutrality plan in place. It seems like we buy some electric cars here, put some solar panels here, and it's never really been thought through completely. As we saw during the general plan, there's been a major backlash against this, doing it on the municipal level. People just don't like being told what to do. And that's what carbon neutrality is at the community level, the government telling people what to do. As far as what is actually being done at the municipality level, we don't know what the cost is. There's no cost-benefit analysis has ever been done on this. And most importantly, one of our consultants that came in here, he said there's no point in doing this unless you're going to market it and promote it. And it's about branding our city. So we already have a great brand, the best little beach city, but the plan here is to rebrand Hermosa Beach as the Green Idea City. And that's what carbon neutrality is all about. So I think we should kill that immediately. And the second one would be code enforcement. If anybody had a chance to attend the code enforcement study session, to give you an idea of how intrusive this government is as far as running businesses, to give you an idea of some of the ones I put down, Paul Hennessy, when he had his 40-year anniversary, had his balloons taken down by code enforcement. There's a trivia night that had to be stopped because there wasn't a permit. Then there was also an amateur comedy night that was stopped because there wasn't a permit.
Summarize.
And the last one was with CrossFit. CrossFit actually was getting tickets for having their athletes run up and down their street. So these are the intrusive elements of code enforcement we need to go ahead and reduce. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.